welcome back to another episode of Sai's Eyes. We're going to be continuing to take a look at my other databases in my Wisdome. So if you haven't taken a listen to what was in the past episode of the Wisdome for the other databases, go ahead and take a listen to that episode, the previous one. But this one, just a continuation of that, since there's a few more databases that I want to be going through and everything that I keep track of in my Wisdome. So in my previous episode, we went through a usernames and password database. That was pretty simple. A social circles one, a YouTube workout video playlist one, a tool services subscriptions database, a mentors, a meeting notes, and my budgets database. So that's about 6-7 databases there. I'm going to be taking a look at a few more in this episode. So the first one I want to go through is a travel one. So this is, I haven't updated it in a while. However, what I've been doing, this is a travel database which has essentially just to keep track of what I'm doing, like when I do travel, like, hey, what are the nice spots that I've been to, or places that people have recommended, etc. Or if people go somewhere, I can just go to this database, recommend something instead of trying to think of something on the spot. So I haven't updated it in a hot minute, but I'll just give you the schema of the database itself. So one, I just have the activity. So let's say in Charlotte, the Rail Trail, or Myers Park, or Freedom Park, or the Rose Garden. So just the activity, have a New Orleans one, have a Puerto Vallarta one, Mexico Glacier National Park. So those are just a few of the ones. I definitely have to go back and, when I was traveling more, add those back in, and as well as the other food places that I've been to around Charlotte, Atlanta, etc. But yeah, so the activity. Then there's a location. So pretty straightforward there of what city it is, or national park, or whatever. So I have the location there. Then I have the type. So this one is kind of a hodgepodge of different things, but I just have, right now, may segregate it or may aggregate it, or whatever, but I have nature, urban, walking, music, bar, food, city square, and hike as the different categories or different values within the type. Some are multiple, like, Bourbon Bandstand in New Orleans is music and bar, since a lot of the things on Bourbon Street are, both. So, whatever that is. And then I have a status column, which is just binary, basically, which is, have I been there or not been there? So, been or not been. So, that's the status there. And then I have a column called Restaurant Stars, which is basically if it is a restaurant, so let's say Café du Monde in New Orleans, type food, and status bin, I'll just give it a restaurant star rating. So give it a 5 stars. If you haven't been there, definitely highly recommend if and when you go to New Orleans to try the beignets at Café du Monde. So yeah, that's the restaurant stars. I have a few more in Charlotte that I've kept track of, for a lot of 3 and 4 stars. No 5-star restaurants that I've come across yet, at least in this database. Maybe as I go in and fill them out, maybe I can add a 5-star one in, but nothing right now. And then the last column that I have in here is just notes. And so usually they don't have any notes, but for some of the hikes, I did. I'll put the distance in. So let's see, which one did I? Iceberg Lake Trail one in Glacier National Park. I've been there, and it was like a 5-mile hike. And then there was a Hidden Lake one, also in Glacier National Park, which is a 2-mile one, and then a few more Swift Current, Avalanche, Lake Virginia Falls that I hadn't been to, but I guess I kept track of it in Evernote originally, and then I just transported that over to Notion when I was building this out. So, pretty quick look at my travel database. Haven't updated in a while, but it's there. And when I do get time, when I make time, I will be updating that. And then this one is the next one is called Noteworty. So a little pun on the name here, where it's, what did I call this? It used to be called like quotes and phrases or something, but over time I've kind of encapsulated and captured different things that are just cool to hear, or things that I've come across, or like quick phrases or quotes or questions, right? So if you read and subscribe to my newsletter, which, good time to plug that, subscribe on my website, click on the Keep Up button and subscribe to my weekly newsletter. But on the weekly newsletter, there's a question of the week section, and so usually I'll have those are coming from here. So it used to be called quotes and phrases, but then it expanded to more than that, and so I was like, I need a catchier name. So then I was like, oh, these are noteworthy words, right? Noteworthy. All right, there we go. Ended up finding out that I wasn't fully original, but it was the first time I'd heard of it, so original for me. So what I have here, let me go to my master view. So I have, the actual, quote, phrase, question, whatever it is. So that, or a word, right? One that I've added recently is imperturbability, right? I saw that when I was reading Meditations. I was like, hey, well, that's a nice word. It's like equanimous, not being not being perturbed by anything, right? So it's a nice, cool word. But yeah, so, have the word or phrase or something that I just come up with, or something to describe me. Let's see. I don't know if there's any, like a character with character type thing, Some of these I might include on a social media profile or bio or whatnot, but just little things I'll think about and just add in here, right? And so then I have that, and then next column is the person. And so if it's a quote, I'll add in the quote. If it, Steve Jobs, MLK, Confucius, Marcus Aurelius, Sadhguru, whoever it is, I'll add it in. And then a lot of these are me, so I have my name in here as well. If it's like an original thing. Then I have the type column, which is quote, question. I was doing a quick survey of the week in my newsletter, but since I've retired it for the last couple of weeks, but was keeping track of that in here. Then I have phrase, novel name, cool words, and proverb. But the ones that I use most are quote, question, novel name, and cool words. And so, I have also a question of the week. So in addition to quote of the week, I have a question of the week. Keep track of both of those in here that I use for the newsletter. Then I have a notes column, which most of these are empty, but I just have it just in case. Then a created date, date time column, so nothing special there. And then I have a status column. And so to keep track of if I've used it in my newsletter or not, because, I can maybe remember the first few that I've done, but then, as I continue creating those newsletters over time, there's going to be dozens, right? And I'm going to maybe lose track of what I have used in the past, what I haven't used. So it's just easier to keep track of everything here. And if there is something that I find in maybe like in a media vault that I used a quote in that book, let's say, I'll transfer the quote over to this Noteworty database and then make the status used so that everything is essentially being tracked of when I use it as a quote or a question or something within the newsletter or other piece of content. So, just simply used and then not used as the couple of couple of the field values there. So, it's nothing that I like review on a whatever basis, but it's definitely something to keep track of and just to quickly add something to organize any cool words, cool phrases, quotes, questions, etc. that I've come across or think of myself. And also I have different views of this. So this is a master view I have, which is everything. Then I have my quotes and phrases, so everything filtered for me. So if it's a novel name or a question or a phrase or quote even, I'll have that. Then I have quotes view, which is only quotes, questions view, which is only questions. So yeah, so that's the Noteworty database. Then I have a feedback/lessons database. So this is essentially, there's only 7, 8 rows right now, but it's essentially just different situations in my life that I've earmarked and want to think of and come back to and deeply reflect on, or have reflected on, and not forget. And so this is potentially feedback that I may have thought of afterwards, or this may have been something that someone did or acted in such a way, and I want to, maybe when there's an opportunity to give feedback to them, I have somewhere to go to, right? Instead of just trying to think of something, within, on the spot, let's say, or even, 10, 20, 30 minutes. If I'm reflecting on it, I may not have thought of what I wanted to fully. And so this can be a nice database as I continue getting experiences. Obviously, I'm documenting stuff as they happen in my vlog and blog and stuff like that, but this is a specific way to see. And so I have that. So this is just a few columns here, just the feedback of, let's see, one is like how to say no for a specific person. And so, like, maybe I've seen someone, not being able to say no particularly well, and being able to prioritize and focus on what they want to say yes to, right? And managing their time and energy effectively. And so, that's the feedback that I've seen and used seen different instances of. Then I have a person column, which is just, who the feedback or lesson for me is for. Then I have a date column for when that instant happened or when I thought of it. And then I have an instance to describe the actual event. If there's a more story line behind it, I'll include that in there. And then I have the type column, which is just feedback or lesson. So feedback is something, that I may give feedback to someone. A lesson is probably more a lesson for me, right? All right, this happened. I want to make a mental note of it. Let's not make the same mistake again if this situation arises. So quick look at that database there, but can be pretty important as I look back and start adding more rows to it. Then I have a couple of, I don't want to go into full detail on this, but I have a couple of garage sale arbitrage databases. I kind of made a decision to not really pursue this as a side project or a project in general going forward. I'm just going to try to sell and donate the stuff that I do have and have bought over the course of a few garage sales, maybe a couple of years ago and stuff. But outside of that, nothing to take a look at here. So I was just just wanting to keep track of everything. When I bought it, the item, how much I buy it for, how much did it sell for, where did I buy it, how much do I plan to sell it for, what category is it, etc. Do I need special packaging? And then item listing data, which is just the item name, when did I post it on eBay or Craigslist or whatever, how many views did it get, how many days after it posted did it sell, etc. So just a very quick run through there. It's not going to be a long-term database that I use. Then I have a jobs one that I created since I already had that data from Evernote, I believe, or Excel, where I wanted to keep track of potential job opportunities that, or at least based off of the company, like, oh, this would be a cool place to work at some point in the future. So I, this was when I was first looking for jobs in, or not first, but when I was looking for jobs before I joined 2U Laundry. And so, I just made a quick note of that, but nothing, but I mean, if and going forward, I'm not looking for anything right now. So it's not applicable right now, but it's just there just in case type of thing. Just wanted to keep track of not losing information that I've captured in Evernote or Excel already. So that was the main reason for creating this database. But if you have something that jobs-wise you're actively applying, this could be a good application for that. Almost using this as a CRM of like, all right, you can use different statuses, right? So I have a status column of, let's see, I built it out. So there's might apply, to apply, applied but no reply back, applied and rejected, interview scheduled, interviewed and rejected, interviewed offered, and interviewed accepted, and then also rejected one. So that's, I have that status field there, so this could be a good way to keep track of, if you're applying to dozens, hundreds of jobs even, to keep track of which ones have replied and the ones that you're interested in, etc. Like what location it is, what's a job title. So that's that. Then I have a quick my physical addresses database, which is just taking a look at the different literally my physical addresses, where I've lived over my life, at least since moving to Kansas City. And so I've lived in Chicago, lived in Austin, lived in Atlanta, lived in Charlotte, right? And so just keeping track of the addresses in case there's some let's say tax information or whatever pops up in the future where I may not remember exactly what the address was. I'll just have it on file. I did need it to apply for citizenship, and stuff associated with that. So it was good to have something like this on hand. Well, I actually didn't have this particularly in Notion, but the information, but I just formalized it in this Notion database. Then I have a fun one of pets and their owners. So a lot of times I can be forgetful of the pets' names or dogs' names, cat names, etc. So I just made a quick 2-column database of the pet name and the owner. So sometimes I'll forget whose dog it is or what their dog name is. So if I do, I can quickly go here and add it in or check. Oh yeah, that's this is your dog's name. So quick little reference guide there. Then I have a where I was when it happened thing database, and so this is important events where in my life where a lot of times people will remember exactly where they were when something happened, and so I just wanted to capture that. So let's see one. I only have 5 things here. I haven't fully built it out, but one of them is the Damian Lillard buzzer beater against the Rockets in 2014, May 2nd. And so I was just at home in the living room. It was a night game, I think game 5 or game 6. It was the night before I was going to Anaheim for Decca Nationals. And so, so I have the event as a column, the actual event. I have the date that it happened. Then I have a where I was or what I was doing when it happened column. And then I have a who I was with column as well, whoever shared that moment with me. So yeah, a quick little fun database there. And then I have a sports betting one, which I was doing originally in Excel, and part of it is still in Excel in terms of more formulaic things regarding how much to bet and stuff. But essentially, I have this column is just to keep track of all the bets that I've done on mybookie.ag, I believe, is the name of the site. And so I have the bet as a column. So let's say the most recent one that I've done was Browns win by 13-18 against the Steelers. This is a playoff game. Didn't bet too much on it, but the odds were pretty good, so that's why. Then I have the date column, so Jan 10th, let's say. Then the game, so Browns Steelers, for example. Then the odds, which is just the odds from whatever that from my bookie or wherever I end up betting from. So I have the odds there, and then the amount of how much I bet, then a bet result of if I win, loss, or if it was a push, and then a bankroll result. So essentially, how much did I win or how much did I lose? So I have a few hidden columns as well, actually, in this, which are just to essentially calculate the bankroll result. So there's one for potential, because odds can be positive or negative, like plus 300 or minus 200, let's say. And so the bankroll result, the formula-wise, it'll depend on if it was positive or negative, or it's easier to calculate that way. Now, I could have done this in one bigger formula, right, which is what I did in Excel, but it got a little complicated, so I just split them out into properties, into formula properties in this database, and just made it a little bit simpler to have just one column for the bankroll result. So yeah, that's a sports betting database. So keeping track of everything there. So hopefully, if everything adds up, it should be, net to however much I have gained and won over my time betting. And then the final one that I've actually created recently is my almost a CRM for my podcast. So essentially, I do want to expand this. I mean, sneak peek preview here. If you're listening to this, if you've made it this far, or if you found this episode and have made it this far within this episode, congrats, you get a nice little sneak peek of how I'm going to approach the podcast in future times. But essentially, I'm just keeping a CRM of who potential guests can be on my podcast. And so, a simple database here of conversation partner, so the guest, so their name, and then I have a status column, which right now, since I haven't actually booked anyone really, is potential, formally requested, verbally committed, scheduled, and recorded. And so I do have, so those, 5 statuses for each of the people. Then I have a bio, if there's information that, I don't know about them, it's the first time meeting them. Obviously, the first few, I think I'll know the person relatively well. But, any bio notes that I find about them online or that they give me beforehand, would input that there. Then I have a location, so whatever city. This is a multiple selection drop down, so let's say someone's living in, I could potentially meet them in multiple cities. Let's say like Chicago and Kansas City, or Boston and Raleigh, for example, or whatever, right? So, or Houston and Dallas, and so you have this multiple drop-down select here for the locations field, and then I have a driving distance field as well, which will be important going forward because if it's within driving distance, because if I want to interview them and I want to do it in person, I can maybe make a trip out of it and interview a couple of people who are maybe potentially living in the same city. Or make a trip where, maybe hit up Atlanta and, I don't know, like somewhere in South Carolina, let's say, for example. So, I have a driving distance one, so yes, no, and depends. Let's see. The depends is, I guess, relative to the location that they're in. So let's say in that Boston-Raleigh example. Raleigh's within driving distance. Boston, not so much. At least from Charlotte. So yeah, that's the CRM there. Obviously, it's going to be more built out. I do have a template that I have, which is essentially just notes from the podcast that I would record with them. And then any pre-podcast notes, any potential questions that I asked them, their answers, I would go back after the fact, or maybe take notes even during. So that's my CRM there. So those are, and I do have, as you've seen, public databases as well. So I have 3 right now of my book vault, my media vault, and my YouTube workout video playlist. And so those 3 databases are online on SaiOS.com. So you can take a look at that as well, just a little bit cleaned up, a little bit filtered down in terms of what's on there, but still very complete from a content, notes perspective, and links and all that. So yeah, so that's all the databases that I have essentially in this Wisdome. The next episode, I think I'll be walking you through my content. And so one database there, but a lot of different views, etc. So sneak peek there. So we're coming up on the end of the SaiOS series. So I'm pretty excited to wrap that up. It's been a lot of episodes, a lot of different parts, but holistically, you can get an idea of how I'm approaching things, how I'm organizing it, what I value, etc. And so, thank you for listening. Hopefully you can subscribe if you already haven't, like, comment, share with your friends to really make this, and if you have any feedback or any questions, feel free to reach out to me at any point, through my website, my phone, email, etc. But anyways, thank you for listening to another episode of Sai's Eyes. I'll see you when I see you.